This morning, we come together to explore the vast potential of TRIO program data, which has been collected for decades. While crucial for annual performance reports, this data holds the promise of far greater impact. And we have gathered two esteemed panel experts who will discuss how this wealth of information can be leveraged to address broader questions surrounding college access and success for TRIO-eligible students. Our focus will be on how data-driven insights can influence policy and practice, not only at the institutional level, but also at the national and the state level. So let me introduce our panelists who bring a diverse perspectives from the education and policy sectors. First, we have Roberto Rodriguez, Assistant Secretary for Planning, Evaluation, and Policy Development at the U.S. Department of Education. Roberto, you'll have a chance to give him another round of applause here in a second. But let me tell you a little bit more about Roberto. He oversees the development and review of the department's budget and has held senior roles in the White House and the U.S. Senate. Before this, he was president and COO of Teach Plus. Roberto earned his bachelor's degree from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, a master's of education from Harvard Graduate School of Education. So now, please welcome Roberto.
Oh, thank you. Hi, everybody.
And our second panelist is Stephanie Miller, Vice President of Data and Impact at Axiom Collaborative. With over 20 years of experience, Stephanie is a leader in large-scale data collection, research, and analytic projects. She is a recognized data expert known for developing data-driven strategies that foster innovation. And an alumna of the TRIO McNair Post-Baccalaureate Achievement Program. Stephanie teaches data science at Bowie State University, focusing on addressing bias in the data science pipeline. She holds a PhD in urban education from Temple University, a master's degree from the University of Michigan, and a certificate in data science from Georgetown University. Finally, Stephanie was a data analyst at COE's Pell Institute. So, Stephanie, it is a pleasure to welcome you back. Let's give our panelists a warm TRIO welcome. All right, so let's get the questions started. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So, Roberto, I'm going to ask you to take this one first, and then Stephanie follow. So the first question is this. The U.S. Department of Education has been collecting extensive student-level data on the services provided by TRIO programs and the academic and educational progress outcomes for at least somewhere around 40 years now. Yeah. What can we learn about increasing post-secondary access and completion from examining this data set?
Great, thank you, Aaron. Well, first and foremost, I just want to say good morning, everybody, and how thrilled I am to be back here. This, I think, is the third time I've had a chance to be here at COE's annual conference since over the course of the Biden-Harris administration. As TRIO turned 60, what a momentous occasion.
Yes.
And you know, part of my bio that I'm really proud of, I want to make sure we hit, is that I was a TA in Upward Bound.
Yes.
Which was my first job, Grand Rapids Community College in my home state of Michigan. And so I'm, a proud alum, a staff alum of TRIO. And really just want to begin by thanking all of you for the tremendous work you do each and every day to unlock college opportunity, to help our young people on that path to and through their higher education journey. TRIO has such a rich history backed by data, as you mentioned, decades of data, around the difference and the change it makes in the lives and in the learning of our students. And that change you all bring about each and every day. So I just want to thank you. And I'm so happy to be here on this esteemed panel with Stephanie and with Aaron. The question around data and the department's collection of data is an important one. Data is important to TRIO both from building the evidence base and doing more to help document the impact, the difference that TRIO makes in the lives of our students. And there is, we collect at the department the APR, the Annual Performance Report data. As you've referenced, we've done that for almost 40 years, I think. And so there's a program by program cache of data that staff within our department, in our Office of Post-Secondary Education, works with. And TRIO is really unique because we actually collect that data project by project. So, you know, that's an important piece. And I just highlight that because evidence is important, right? Data is important to build the evidence base. And we commit in our administration to using evidence actively in how we shape our policies, in how we advance new solutions for our communities, and in how we make our investments, right? How we propose our budgets and take those up to Congress. And that evidence base has been the wind in the sails for the Biden-Harris administration's commitment to grow TRIO, to propose greater increases in TRIO funding over the past 3 years, and to work with our partners in Congress to get that across the finish line. So data is important there. Data is also important because it tells a story, right? And behind those data points, we can better understand how our programs are doing, how our staff are doing, you know, how our individual students are progressing. So here's a place where the APR data has been really rich in helping us track enrollment, track persistence, track the specific services provided to individual students, whether that's in student support services or Upward Bound or our other programs. But where we have missed and where we have a gap we have to do better is in thinking about how do we collect deeper data and better understand that with the help from our research community and with the help from other partners outside of the department, including COE, right, to better unpack that data and say, all right, well, what can that data tell us beyond the counting the number of young people that are persisting toward or graduating or getting into college? What can we learn about who those young people are, what they need, what's missing in the services, in the support that we're providing them? How can we serve their families better? How can we connect their experience in TRIO more deeply to their experience day to day in their schools and in their classrooms and with their peers? So many of those richer questions around the quality, around the difference that TRIO can make and its potential to grow, right? That's data we are still aspiring toward. That's data we still need to collect and synthesize and analyze with other partners.
Thank you, Roberto. Stephanie?
Thank you. First, thank you to President Jones, Dr. Brown, for inviting me here. I also just want you to know, McNair was not my first introduction into TRIO. I actually am an Upward Bound math science student many years ago. And actually, Dr. Corus Davis over there was my college counselor. It was my first time being on a college campus. And Dr. Davis, I apologize for the headache I'm sure me and my friends gave you that summer. It was a enriching but really crazy summer. It was great. So I love data, right? That is what I do. I love to be in a room and really use data to understand what is going on in the world. How can I make sense of what is happening? And so in terms of college access and success, what I do know from the data that's out there and all the studies that have been done on TRIO is that TRIO works. And not only does it work, but TRIO is unique in that TRIO programs are located in various different institutions, your 2-year colleges, your 4-year colleges, in many different communities. And TRIO has managed to figure out the perfect pathways to help students, because there is no one pathway to student success. There's no one pathway to credential attainment. And I think TRIO is unique in that we have figured out that we need to give students access to things. I think most important is that we give students access to people. right? People who care, people who show up, and people who are dedicated and never let go. That's first. And secondly, we are giving students opportunities to participate in programs, to learn not only the hard skills that you need, math and science, but also those soft skills that certainly matter as you are navigating life. And I think that is the stories that some of the APR data can tell us. As my colleague said, the data is missing some of that context, but that's what I get when I look at some of the APR reports and I read the studies, is that there's no one pathway, but TRIO has this unique secret, it's not even a secret, this sauce that just works. And we know this because there have been 6 million students served. And as you look at the data over time, the number of students that TRIO attracts and serves and graduates from high school and college, it just continuously increases.
Well, thank you. Dr. Miller, I'm going to have you continue on to this next question,
Okay.
Kick us off here. What more can be learned from connecting the TRIO APR data set with large data sets such as the National Student Clearinghouse and unemployment insurance wage data?
So we are in like the perfect time for folks that love data, right? Technology has made our ability to access and analyze data just incredible. AI is just one of these tools. AI and our ability to do deep data analytics is just incredible. So how do we do it though, right? The National Student Clearinghouse has data from high school on to college, but there's stuff that's missing. What happens after students graduate? What about that data? And so there have been plenty of conversations of how do we connect, how do we look at this pipeline, pre-K through 20 and post-graduation. I encourage everyone to tap into your state longitudinal data systems. To me, that is our data. We are in this field, and so we should be able to access that data so that we can track our students. We should be able to interface with the Department of Labor to get this information, and we should be able to make those connections, and we should be looking at that data on a regular basis so that we can understand the pathways, so that we can understand what fields our students are entering into, not just at a national level, but also at a community level as well. There are so many job openings and labor issues at the community level, and how do we help our students take advantage of those opportunities? And being able to access that data is just incredibly important. And learning about how to use AI and all these other big data technologies to do that work, it would just, really enable us to tell the important stories of TRIO that much better.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I could also add to those great points Dr. Miller made and say, I feel like, the more data points we can aggregate and tap into, the better we can understand our students, how they're learning, how they're progressing, what they're facing, and how we can really help them improve, right? That is the potential to tap into some of these other data sets, whether it's the National Clearinghouse, whether it's other federal data sets. The state, I just want to echo the connection to these state longitudinal data systems, which now are in every single state, and we need to push those. Many of them are very, very K-12 focused and not oriented as much as they could be around college opportunity and that pathway to and through college. And so that's something we're really paying attention to at the department, and we want to try to urge Congress to think about expanding those a bit too as they reauthorize the ESRA program, which authorizes that program. But let me just say, I think the better we understand our students, and in order to serve our students well, we have to understand who they are.
That's right.
We have to understand what they're facing, where they live, where they come from, the depth of that demographic data, the languages they speak, what their families are facing. And we know that our students that are being served by our TRIO programs are our students that are, often facing challenges at home economically, food insecurity, housing insecurity, all of these factors that shape learning and shape the lives of our young people. So the potential here is to tap into other data sources that, TRIO doesn't collect at the federal level, where we don't collect at the Department of Ed, but are important because they help fill out the context for our learners.
I love that. As you are both talking, we're already starting to move into the idea of implications, right? Yeah. And so that's kind of, maybe say a little bit more about that. What are the implications for policy and practice at the institutional, state, and national levels?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is where I get excited, and
yes.
Dr. Miller and I both are. We're data geeks, right? I think I'm so excited. We had Congress actually act 5 years ago and pass the Evidence Act, which created an office of the Chief Data Officer within my department, and that's led by Dr. Ross Santee, who's a terrific researcher, and he is stewarding a whole data strategy that is really about helping us improve the governance of data in our Department of Education, but also improving the capacity of individuals to use data, to understand data, and to visualize data in ways that help us make decisions, important decisions about how we support our programs within the department, and to build those muscles around data use outside of our department so that our leaders in our programs, our TRIO leaders in their institutions, have the skills, the training, the support to collect that data and use it themselves. I mean, that data is only as powerful as you're able to use it on a day-to-day basis to help support your staff and your students. So I think the power institutionally is there. I think we need to do, and we can step up to do even more at the federal level to support your efforts, build your capacity. That is something we aspire to use your data in ways that really help support the services. But the other potential here, as I talked about before around data and decision making, is if we can get that data to the state level, we can make a better case for exactly what you heard, that TRIO works, and that we need the support and the additional resources that states are investing right now to come alongside TRIO and better support more students in getting to and through college. And we have states that are investing in creating their own programs around college access and opportunity, which we applaud. We have a number of states that have moved forward now, I think almost 30, with some type of free or deep discounted tuition for college. Those are important programs. But we need that TRIO data to be able to show them, look, we can't pursue those strategies independent and apart from the work that's being done in our TRIO programs. Those opportunities for college preparation and college success, they have to be knitted together more actively. And I think data at the state level can help us do that.
Thank you.
I agree with everything you all just heard. I just also want to point out, storytelling is so powerful, data storytelling.
Yes.
Last night we sat at the dinner and we heard all those wonderful stories from our TRIO community about their successes. Those are wonderful stories. But I think politicals, they want something different, right? They want the bottom line. They want to know the return on their investment. And being able to use that data to tell powerful stories is key. As I prepared for this presentation, I actually glanced at the 2024 indicators report that Dr. Terry Vaughn did for the Pell Institute. And if nothing else, that report in and of itself gives a rich history of what has happened over the last 50 years, where we have seen successes, things that need to change, like financial aid funding and things of that nature. And so just being able to take data, make sense of it, and really tell powerful stories is just something that, I think is something we need and something to help continue to move TRIO forward.
Thank you. This is the last question I have, I think. Would using TRIO programs to inform policy and practice for low-income, first-generation students in general serve to increase public and private support for TRIO?
I think undoubtedly yes. The answer to that is yes. And that is something, again, to aspire toward, to think about how, we collect a small slice, as deep a data collection as the APR is, and as long-standing a collection as it is, that's reaching now over 3,000 grantees across the country for decades. It is just a slice of the data and the story that we need to tell about TRIO, and the connection, as Dr. Miller says, to outcomes and to the future of communities, the health and the sustainability of our communities, right? Because that is what we're building with TRIO, right? That investment in the lives and in the opportunity for higher education for our young people, that is an investment, that is a down payment in the future sustainability of a community. So there, we collect a small piece, but there's so much more that we need to be collecting and looking at and taking to our friends in the private and philanthropic sectors about what TRIO means in their cities, in the communities in which they care about. One thing is very clear, and I can say this from my previous roles, not in government, but talking to foundations and to philanthropy, they care about data, right? They want to see the bottom line, and they want to see an evaluation strategy that can help to inform the quality and the improvement of programs over time, and that will tell them a story at the end of their investment of, did this investment pay off? So I think it's important to continue to try to bring that data alongside. The federal data can help there, but it's not the full picture. And we need to invite our friends in the private and philanthropic community into the TRIO family, into the work. Because it's work that is about building a stronger and more sustainable community. That is work that so many partners, it's not a go-it-alone strategy.
Thank you.
My answer is yes as well. Yes, and I agree with everything you said. I do work in the philanthropic space, and every day I'm thinking about impact and how do the programs we collaborate with our partners, how do I help them demonstrate impact, right? And so yes, these stories and this data is all part of the work that I do. It's very important.
Yeah, as I hear you talking, both of you, I think about, okay, so we have a lot of practitioners in the room right now. So, and you said some pretty incredible things, really important things. What could you say to them about what can they do to make some of these things happen that you've talked about? And what can the council do to partner, particularly with the Department of Education, to make this happen?
Yes. Well, one idea is to think a little bit about how we bootstrap and build out the opportunity to collect the data that matters in our programs. And I know, we use data through the APR, as I mentioned, at the Department of Ed, primarily for program review and for program monitoring. And to some degree, we use that to be able to inform the decisions to continue to invest and support bigger investments for TRIO in our budgets. And our administration has certainly gone in that direction. But what we don't use that data actively for program improvement, right? And that's an area where I think we can do better, and an area where I think the TRIO field is poised to lead. So my one invitation to you would be to think about, at the helm of your program, beyond the reporting you do every year, that you got to get done, and I know that can be a headache, and it's sending in the APR, and it's going through, and what does that look like? But what other data can you start to collect, both to better understand the students you're serving, the schools they're coming from, have those schools, have those environments changed over time? Are you serving the neediest students in your community? What new relationships might you need to build with your district, within your institution, to get to those students who really need TRIO? So I think better building that piece out, and then I think it's better understanding students. I think the second piece is around better improving your program, right? And that's a question of quality and what's working and what's not working. And we don't get at that at the federal level, but that is something that is so important to the future of TRIO. If we are going to aim to serve all the students that need TRIO and to give them the full range of supports and services they need to prepare for college, we have to ask ourselves, what's working? Right. What can work better and why? And so those are questions you all can answer specific to your context. What dosage matters the most around the tutoring or the interventions that you have academically? What experiences are moving the needle on college campuses? Is that summer program working or not, and how? How are my students experiencing that? What more might they need? Having the conversations with your institutions of higher education that your TRIO students are feeding into, and figuring out how well prepared are they? What were they missing? How can I get to that a little bit earlier? Those are all kind of under the surface quality questions that I think our specific programs can help answer.
Well said.
I'm going to give a more of a practical type answer, right? So I've worked with practitioners, teachers and counselors and things like that before, and I've always heard, I do not like stats at all. Stats 101, I did not do so well. I've heard that before, and stats are not part of my job. Okay, just for the record, I did not do well in Stats 101 when I first took it either. It was a struggle, so I get it. Data does not have to be intimidating at all. You don't have to do these fancy statistics. You don't have to do that. Just simple exploratory data analysis is what you can do. You don't need these expensive softwares to do this work either. Excel works perfectly fine. And in fact, I use Excel to teach my intro data science class because it works. Yeah. Also, there is so much data already out there. You do not have to spend money collecting data. There's the American Community Survey that is collected by the US Census Bureau every single year, and it is probably my favorite data set that is out there. You can look at what's happening in your state and your communities using the American Community Survey. It is an incredible survey. The Department of Education also collects a ton of data. I used to oversee the civil rights data collection for the department. That data gives you all kinds of insights into what is happening in your communities and inside of the schools that feed into your college programs, right? There's information on school climate, student suspensions, schools arrests. I mean, it is just an incredible data set, and it is collected every 2 years. And so I encourage everyone to, first just take a breath. Data is not intimidating, it's wonderful. Yes. Open up Excel or even Google Sheets, even though I don't really like Google Sheets, but I get it. Open up Excel, just open up the data set, read about it, come up with really interesting questions. I'm sure you all have questions about your communities, about the schools your students attend. Just go for it. Just open it, and the possibilities are endless. And what is also incredible about some of these data sets, particularly the Department of Education, is that you can connect them all. Every data set has some sort of unique ID where you can tell really unique and rich stories. And you can also merge it with the data that you're collecting from your students as well. And so that's what I encourage people to do. Just jump in. It's not going to bite, I promise.
It is such great advice. Take a breath, because I know it's intimidating. We can all get intimidated. I sure, my freshman year when I took that statistics class, forget about it. Right. It's the worst grade I've ever gotten. But I'll tell you, once you spend some time as Dr. Miller says, with the data, and you have the agency to develop that question. What's the question you want to answer?
Right.
You want to pose an answer about the program you're working in, about the students you're serving, or the community they're in. And you have the agency to pose that question. We do every year, my team leads a data palooza within the Department of Education. This is just for our staff within the department across all of our programs, from our TRIO staff, in our Office of Post-Secondary Ed, all the way through my folks that work on student aid to the K-12 programs, Title I, all these programs. And we have our folks that come in and they sit down and we talk to them about using data and about data visualizations, right? And they kind of roll their sleeves up and say, all right, now how do I want to see this data? What do I want to answer? And I think the most powerful part of that, and we try to collect data on how that works, is that it debunks our staff within the Department of Education. It debunks their aversity sometimes to looking at data and using data and spending time. They just spend, a couple hours of an afternoon doing this, right? So this is something you can do in your programs. It's something that COE can do in terms of a data palooza, right? To see what data do we have at the Pell Institute, that's a treasure trove, the data from the Department of Ed, your local data, and it's about building our muscles, and feeling good after that workout, about understanding data and what it means for our outcomes.
I love it. I too am a data nerd, so I'm eating all this up. One thing I'm thinking about as a former director of TRIO, and something that I've seen as a theme throughout the conference is know your audience.
That's right.
And you said something that really sparked my interest. You said, what questions do you want to answer? And sometimes the question you want to answer is, what's important to the provost, the president of my campus, the decision makers, and how can I take the data and the good things that we're doing and share that with the decision makers, right? So I think that's really important to know your audience as well.
Right.
Okay, so I have had the privilege of asking all these wonderful questions, right? I'm going to give you a chance, our community, as we always do, a chance to ask our experts up here a few questions. So if you would be so kind, please, if you have a question, come up to the mic, ask your question. But before you do, please begin by saying your name, your institution, and your TRIO program. And there are mics up front here. So come on forward, don't be shy.
Don't be shy.
That's right.
I know it was a long night last night, everybody was dancing.
Hey there, my name's Amy King. I'm from University of Tennessee in Knoxville, EOC. I was a former Upward Bound for 5 years before that. Right. Earlier you mentioned soft skills, and I guess my question is, can you define that? I know what it means to me, but I guess define that, and then a step further, how do we collect that kind of data? Like, what kind of questions are you looking for?
Soft skills. So I can remember at McNair at the University of Maryland with Dr. Lewis, walking across that hot campus to go to a class on presentations, how to present yourself. That's a soft skill that every student needs. How to do a presentation, how to talk to a room full of people. I did not know I was going to be in a room this big, by the way. So how do you do that? I took a class on etiquette. How do you sit and have dinner with folks? That's what we mean by soft skills, not the math classes and the science classes, but how do you interact with people? How do you send, I particularly think it's important for this generation, an email? How do you send an email to people? You cannot use acronyms in an email because I'm not your friend. That's what I tell my students all the time. Spell it out. How do you collect that data? All data is not a survey where you can just, you'll have quantitative data. Sometimes qualitative data is important as well, but at least saying we gave a student a class on presentation, check. We gave a student a class on etiquette, check. That's what we're doing. And I think those skills show itself in the long run. Actually, it's not something that you may not realize right in the beginning has worked, and so it will take some time to really realize there are things that McNair and Upward Bound taught me that, you know, sometimes when I'm actually doing the thing, when I'm presenting, it's like, oh, that's why they had me walk across that campus to do a presentation class, right? So some things are not going to be immediate.
Hi, my name is Michelle Mears. I'm with the TRIO SSS at Sam Houston State University in the very small town of Huntsville, Texas. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also a career counselor, and so I'm always interested in data in terms of career outcomes with students. And you know, that's a big push right now, given that we're having to justify the cost of college, that it definitely, you get a return on investment. A lot of the data I see that you guys are talking about focuses a lot on if students are graduating within a certain amount of time and those things. Can you share a little bit more about how do we find out more about the career outcomes that our TRIO students are having? You know, is TRIO making a difference? I mean, I think we are, but I don't have any hard numbers to prove that our students are graduating and not being unemployed or underemployed.
Yes.
Yeah, what a great
Love that. What's a great question. You know, and I think it's about how do we tap into some of the other data sets around understanding as our students are moving on from TRIO into their colleges or universities, is there opportunities for gainful employment? You know, we do track that data at the Department of Ed. We also track outcome data relative to specific institutions. So there are a couple places where you can look to tap that. But I think also underneath your question is a bigger invitation for us, and I think opportunity for us to think about the workforce readiness skills alongside our college readiness skills. You know, and for too long, we have had a dichotomy here. We've had two different silos. You're either like getting ready for college, or you're in CTE and you're getting ready for the workforce, and maybe that helps you earn an industry recognized credential, maybe it doesn't. And we need to fiercely braid and blend those two worlds for our students, because our young people do not think in those very dichotomous ways of like, either I'm going to college and I don't need to get a job, or I need to get a job and I guess I don't need to go to college, or I don't need post-secondary credit. In fact, you need both, right? We know 7 out of 10 jobs require some type of post-secondary education. That may not be a 4-year degree, maybe a 2-year degree, maybe industry recognized credential, but they need that, right? So Texas is really interesting because 10 years ago, your legislature said, guess what? Career readiness, readiness for the workforce, and readiness for the military are going to be on par with readiness academically. And it's taken some time, but I just had a conversation last night with someone who is building a dashboard for workforce skills that they're introducing in Texas. And you know, I love the idea of seeing more of that alongside are you on track to graduate with all your credits? Because our young people, that information for them is power. Right? It's the ability for them to say, okay, I can shape my future, and I can shape an education experience that gives me purpose, that lets me see myself in my future. So, you know, we're not where we need to be as a country yet on collecting that workforce readiness data, but I am encouraged that I think policy and investments are moving in that direction.
Yeah, I agree. I would also encourage, there are privacy issues around collecting, getting access to student data. But in my opinion, TRIO, you are part of this ecosystem. And so I would encourage you to have those conversations with data brokers at the state level. And, try to implement data sharing agreements and collaboratives, because you should have access to this information for the students that you have and will serve. And so I would start there too. I I would knock on doors and say, let's have a conversation and figure out how we can do that. And, partner if need be. Many of you at universities go through your institutional research offices to help you broker those conversations with the state because they have information on where students are. There will be holes because students move and things like that, but the information is there. We just have to convince folks to let it go and to give it to us.
Thank you.
So true.
Thank you. Sorry, funny angle. Hi,
Oh.
nice to see you. Good morning. Thank you for your time and for everything you've shared. I really appreciate it. My name is Heather, and I'm joining you from the McNair program in Buffalo, New York. The question I'd like to ask you pertains within the context of serving first-generation low-income students in higher education. So knowing that you both spend a lot of time looking at data, what are some of those key data points that you can share that are either particularly alarming or maybe even particularly encouraging to you? Thanks.
Thank you, Heather.
When I first looked at the indicators report from the Pell, looking at Pell Grants and they haven't moved, I'm like, what in the world is going on? That has stuck in my head. College enrollment is decreasing, but the number of students that TRIO is serving is going up. So students and families want to go to college. They want to succeed. That's what we do know. But, financial aid has not caught up. And that is alarming for me. And so how do we, I have thought about how do we advocate for that? How do we help students get more funding? Because we know funding is one of those issues that is discouraging students from going to college. How do we change that for students? How do we help families understand the benefit of going to college? That is what is alarming for me, is that some families just don't get it.
Yeah, and there's so many important points to look across the journey. I can just mention a few that we really try to track closely. One is, the broader college enrollment trends, which, we just looked at this about 2 weeks ago and plotted a graph that went back to the time I was working on a lot of these pieces with President Obama, and we were seeing, at that time, surges in college enrollment. Right, and then we started to approach the pandemic, but even approaching the pandemic, college enrollment was kind of going down a bit.
Yes.
The pandemic really, I don't have to tell any of you this, you know how challenging that was. We're seeing now some upticks, Dr. Miller said, slowly, particularly in the Latino community, I will mention, but our overall college enrollment is still down. Our college enrollment for our Black students is still down. It is not, we're not where we need to be. So that is, when I look at that and then I look at the economic data around what our students need to know and be able to do, and the sea change that we are seeing from the bipartisan infrastructure bill and the CHIPS Act and the Inflation Reduction Act that says we have clean energy economy. We have a digital economy taking shape. We have an innovation economy taking shape. Global pieces shaping that. We have to get more serious about getting more of our young people in and through higher education. That's right. This is not something we can rest on our laurels. So, that journey starts early, right? So we're interested in data around college advising. How many students have access to that? At what point in their career? We're interested in data around dual enrollment and early college credit. I was just with folks in Indiana last week on the Secretary's bus tour and had a chance to speak with some of them. They're leading the country in the share of high school students who earn a college credit before they graduate. That is not a nice to have. That should be our norm. We should be providing opportunities for every young person to earn those credits early and free before they graduate, right? We're looking also at how we're doing relative to persistence and completion, and that completion rate and the early warning systems that we need to put in place in our colleges and universities. This is why we've shaped a post-secondary student success program alongside our TRIO investments in the Biden-Harris administration to say we want to be partners with colleges and universities that are putting infrastructure in place. And when I say infrastructure, I mean not just data to track how their students are doing, particularly their first generation and low-income students after they arrive on campus. That infrastructure is about people, right? That's about, you know, having mentors, having success coaches, having leaders at the institutional level that are responsible and supporting each and every one of those young people as they walk through that college door to say, you can do this, and we're going to make sure that you get through, that you can earn that degree. So the data paints a really rich picture there, but we have a lot of work to do still to get to where we need to go.
Yeah.
Just to echo a bit, I'm sorry. At Axum Collaborative, we are also interested in helping institutions be able to sort of embed some of this new technology into their work to make using data, collecting data, and using data on a regular basis a part of our strategy. We think this is also really important. And so we fund partners who are looking at AI tutors, AI assistant, because we understand, students need access to innovation. Innovation is being embedded into the workforce, being able to use AI. And so how can we help institutions prepare students for that? We also are funding projects that, people are telling us we need dashboards. We need better dashboards. We need access to the data. And so we partner with organizations that are doing that work as well, because we also think it is really, really important. So.
Yeah, no, that's great points. I go back to what you both kind of landed on the beginning with this answer. Something that's alarming is when you disaggregate the data of the enrollment trend, right? That's has been going down.
Yep. And
you look at it from a disaggregate level, who are we losing? I mean, that's the question, right? Is our low-income first-generation students being disproportionately lost in this enrollment cliff? Right. And that's what I think when you look at the data, you're going to see that the answer is yes. And so that's an alarm for us as a community.
And we have to put the resources behind that to change that trajectory. And so much of that for us is also making sure we're investing in student aid. We've grown the Pell Grant by $900 over the last 3 years for maximum Pell. That is the largest increase we've seen, in a 3-year span. As far as I've worked on Pell, I've been working on federal policy and Pell for over 20 years. But we're not where we need to be. We haven't restored the buying power of Pell to be able to cover a majority of a 4-year college tuition. So we have to keep going toward that goal of doubling Pell. We have to make sure that our student debt is not shaping the life trajectory and decisions of our students as they graduate in ways that stifle their ability to buy a home or to start a family, right? And so fixing this public service loan forgiveness program, which I will say now, when we came into office, we had 7,000 individuals who were receiving public service loan forgiveness. And we tracked that data and looked at that and said, that is less than 10% of the applicants that are filing to get what they earned, which is public service loan forgiveness, what Congress authorized 20 years ago for them. And we said, that's got to change, right? And we flipped the script, and we have 942,000 public service loan forgiveness recipients now. Yes. So, to the tune of $68 billion that we've been able to forgive in student loans. So that, these things matter because the psychology of going to college, I mean, this is what we do in TRIO, right? It is about how we help our young people navigate that journey and have the conversations with their parents and with their families who are looking at the sticker price of college, which has gone up higher than any other commodity in our country. And they're going, whoa, wait a second. So if we're not addressing that that college affordability and that student debt challenge, we're not going to get there.
Yeah, well said. We may have time for 2 more, but I know we have time for 1 more, I think.
Good morning, Josh Engler, Boise State University, TRIO Upward Bound. One of those who was a recipient of public service loan forgiveness.
All right, Josh.
I want to thank you both for being here. This has been incredibly informing. You spoke about the importance of working with our states and community data sets as we're seeking to advance our work in these spaces. Can we work with the department to get the APR data that you've collected so we can better tell our story?
Yeah, thank you, Josh, for that question. I will tell you, I've had conversations with my colleagues and our team, and we are working on that and working toward that. You know, we want to be able to practice one of the 4 principles that we have in our data strategy at the U.S. Department of Ed, which we just refreshed last year. And that principle is around transparency and access to data. And so we want to do all we can, and we have a couple barriers that we have to work through in terms of privacy and security and technical interoperability around the APR data. But you know, we certainly have an aspiration to be able to provide greater access to that data for our COE community and for the broader public. Yeah.
All right, we have time for one last question.
Hi, I'm Artiola from the City College of New York in Harlem. I'm with Upper Bound and TRIO. And I wanted to continue the conversation on enrollment. I'm finding that many of the high school students I work with do not see the immediate value and prioritize college. They're thinking of entrepreneurship or going straight to work. I do my best to explain why college is still important even for those careers, but wondering what advice you all have to express the importance of college with today's youth.
Boy, that's a really good question too. You know, and it speaks to what we were talking about around the psychology of higher education, right? And, you know, we all know that a college degree and college attainment is still one of the most powerful rungs on the ladder of opportunity into upward mobility economically, into the middle class, as President Biden often says. So, you know, fortifying that rung, helping our young people better understand that in real terms that they care about is the charge, right? And I think that's about looking at the jobs, you know, in their community and our jobs nationally. How many of those require a college degree? What will those jobs look like? And you know, when I have conversations with young people, and I have a teenager now just in her freshman year, so we've had this discussion at home. The jobs that are going to be in demand for this generation, both in the next year and two, and certainly into the next decade, many of those look different than the jobs that currently are out there, right? And those high demand jobs are jobs that require STEM skills, require cyber skills, require digital, you know, require some proficiency and literacy around AI. So those are not opportunities you can get right now outside of higher education. That higher ed degree is important for unlocking access to those jobs. And I think you can still see very clear data economically around, you know, no high school graduation, high school graduation but no degree, you know, one degree, and then post-secondary, you know, graduate degree. And I think just unlocking the dollars behind that for young people often helps open their eyes.
So I do teach part-time. I teach at the college level at Bowie State University, if anybody here is from Bowie. And so I deal with a lot of, these students deal with misinformation all the time. So I simply tell my students, prove me wrong. Since you saw somebody tweet this out or you see it on TikTok, prove me wrong. Go find the data. And I always tell them, what you see on social media is not true. And so go and look it up. You tell me what life looks like for somebody with a degree versus someone without. Long term, not short term. That's what I tell them all the time. I also talk about my own personal experiences. I went to Baltimore City Public Schools. I tell them about the friends that I still have, the friends who didn't go to college, my friends who did go to college but didn't go to graduate school, and I talk to them about the differences in our trajectories, right? Yes, I was a broke graduate student for many, many years. I've eaten so much ramen, it's ridiculous, right? But I'm not eating ramen now, that's what I tell them. And so I take that honest approach with students because that's what they need. I try to help them to be critical thinkers, and in spite of social media and all the misinformation that's on there, and I make them go look it up themselves because you're not going to believe me. Go look it up and let's have a conversation. Use ChatGPT if you want to, but let's look it up. That's how I do it.
Thank you.
I like that. Aaron, I know we're almost at time. I see we have time for one last question. I just want to honor folks.
We have 2 minutes. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. The panel has been great. I will be quick. My name is Lauren Hill. Yes, Lauren Hill. That is my name. You can talk to me afterwards about it. I am from Higher Education Consortium of Metropolitan St. Louis with the Talent Search Program. I'm a STEM professional as my career has shifted into TRIO. But I wanted to make a quick announcement and then a question. I have had the great honor of serving as an educator on the Education Advisory Board for the Federal Reserve. And as a TRIO person, we are in that particular realm. They have loads of data, they have loads of resources with regards to monetary policy, economics. So reach out to your Federal Reserve groups in your areas. There are 12 districts. You can figure them out by just going on the Federal Reserve and maybe reach out because I am the only TRIO person that is on the St. Louis's committee. So I wanted to mention that.
That's great advice.
So now with data, how can what recommendations, since I've kind of mentioned that to the group, what recommendation do you have for us to be able to either get in data? I know what we do with regards to some of the educational information that they have, but how can I get more interface with them to provide data or possibly get them to put our TRIO group and some of the students in their database?
30 seconds to respond.
Well, I would say, I think, continuing to make those relationships and make those connections and build those bridges to share the data. You heard Dr. Miller talk about data sharing agreements. That's where I would go. I think those data sharing agreements, whether it's with state, whether it's at the federal level, whether it's at the local level, those are the tickets to being able to unlock data you don't have and to share your story with others.
And I forgot to say one last thing. In the STEM professional world, we always say, in God we trust, all others bring data.
That's a good bumper sticker.
Will you join me in giving our expert panelists a round of applause?